Hi, I'm Manda McKay. I'm a professional artist and I'm making these videos with creativity tips to help people become more creative versions of themselves. And these tips are meant to be helpful regardless of your level of expertise. So for this tip, I want to talk about making things easier on yourself. And by that, I mean looking to see whether in your creative practice, whatever project you're working on, is there unnecessary difficulty that you're adding that's not necessarily part of your artistic vision. Because a lot of us are very pressed for time and energy to be able to work on anything creative. And so if you're doing something that's going to unnecessarily cause your project to take a lot longer than it needs to, then that's something that's worth addressing. So I'm going to give an example of what I'm talking about. Several years ago, a friend of mine put on a stage play that he wrote, and it was about college students, and they lived in dorm rooms. And for whatever reason, this play had 5 different dorm rooms as settings. So a scene would end, and then the lights would go out on stage, and you would hear the stage hands like dragging furniture around on the stage, and then a couple minutes later the lights would come back on, and it was supposed to be a different character's dorm room. And I would say there was probably just about as much time spent switching out the furniture to set up a different person's dorm room as there was actual dialogue and the play itself happening. And as I was watching this, well, I mean, it became rather tiresome. I mean, the play was good other than that. But to me, it seemed like maybe one dorm room, but certainly two different dorm rooms, like a guy's room and then a girl's room, would have been more than sufficient. And maybe even instead of like taking down one set and putting up another and dragging furniture around, maybe just have like the one room on one side of the stage and the other room on the other side of the stage. And I really think that would have made the play flow so much more smoothly. Like I said, I did enjoy the play. I did not, for the life of me, figure out why the heck there needed to be all those different dorm rooms, or why, at the very least, why they had to involve dragging furniture, maybe put on like a different colored bedspread or something, I don't know. But definitely there was really no need to do that. Had this been like a TV show or a movie, it would have worked a little bit better as far as not taking so much time away from the audience actually enjoying the play itself. You wouldn't have to you would have done all of that behind the scenes before a TV show or movie was done, but it still would be taking a lot of extra time. And if there is not some really important reason to have all these different settings, then even if you're doing that behind the scenes and editing a movie together, you would have to ask yourself, why do you really need to do this? So that's what I'm talking about when I say about, is there a way that you can make things easier on yourself that's not compromising your artistic vision? Now, an example that I'll use for myself, I paint still lifes of assembled natural objects. And for the first maybe year that I was doing this, I would have my objects that I was painting, but I would have like a fabric background of some sort, just so that I mean, really, there wasn't necessarily a reason to be doing that. In the very beginning, I was using unusual fabrics like leopard print, and then that didn't really fit with how my art was evolving. And so at that point, I started questioning, like, why was I bothering to paint these backgrounds? Because they had turned into just like a dull beige fabric background just for the sake of having a background. And it didn't add anything to the art. And it also it used up a lot more paint, so it was more expensive, took more time to have to paint in this background that wasn't really doing much, and then just took a lot longer to dry, for the canvas to dry so that I could store it and move on to the next painting. So what I wound up doing was just not doing backgrounds at all. I paint the objects, and anything that's not the objects is just the unpainted white canvas. And honestly, it did make my art a lot better. I'm not saying to necessarily that taking out something like this isn't necessarily going to improve whatever it is that you're working on, whatever your project is. It did in my particular case, and I think it certainly would have made that play a lot better. But just, is there something that at the very least that's taking up time, resources, energy that doesn't need to be there, and that's taking it out would not compromise your artistic vision. So that's what I'm talking about when I say make it easy on yourself. Try to figure out if there's anything like this that can be eliminated, and it'll free up that much more time and energy and resources for you to work on what's actually the important part of your creative practice. So let me know in the comments what you think and if you have any examples of having done this yourself. Again, my name is Manda McKay, and thank you so much for watching.